Joy is Helen's middle name, if you guys didn't know that. So I guess it's a little fitting. Welcome. Good morning, my dear brothers and sisters of Ecclesia. Now we have finished the season of waiting in Advent. Christmas is here. Happy Christmastide. Helen is a frequent watcher of Peppa Pig, so certain Britishisms have come into our house, including saying Happy Christmas and talking about Father Christmas instead of Santa Claus. It annoys her brothers, but I find it very cute. I'm excited to share with you guys this morning because this is my favorite time of year. Not Christmas, but this week between Christmas and New Year's is my very favorite time of the year. We're about halfway between Christmas and New Year today, which can be an odd time. Perhaps you're still off work, and if you're a student, you are likely still on winter break. About 5 years ago, in the middle of the pandemic, I recorded a message for Ecclesia where I shared about my love for this time of year and encouraged everyone to practice the spiritual discipline of reflection as you prepare for the coming new year. I'm not going to repeat that message today. You can go watch it on the YouTube channel. I checked, it's still there. However, I am going to touch on some of the points from that message as they also relate to my message today. This morning, I'm putting my Dr. Arnold hat on, even more so than I normally do. The message I'm going to share with you will be a little bit more like a lecture I might give my students and less like a sermon. I also brought you a handout. If you don't happen to be sitting on a row that has a handout, just look around, see if you can locate one, because I did kind of try to distribute them around the room. I highly recommend that you reference it during the message today, but please do not feel obligated to take it home if you won't use it and don't think it will be helpful to you. I'm going to begin by sharing a couple of scriptures from the lectionary this morning that are relevant to my message. Then I'll spend some time asking you to consider who is mentoring you and discussing the necessity of being intentional about our mentors. This will lead me to explain why I see reading as a spiritual practice and conclude with some suggestions for your own reading practice in 2026. But to begin, please join me in prayer. Lord, thank you for bringing us safely to the end of 2025. We are grateful for the spiritual growth and community that has continued to develop at Ecclesia this year. As we seek to end this year well and begin 2026 with grace and a desire to grow closer to you, please help this message to provide encouragement and instruction. As always, thank you for giving me inspiration and the desire to share something so special to me with my church community. If there's any part of this message that does not follow your plan for us, please let those words fall away and be completely disregarded. We love you and are grateful for your presence with us today. Amen. So I will begin by reading from the lectionary. So join me by reading the two lectionary passages that I've chosen for today. The first is Isaiah 63, 7 through 9. I will recount the gracious deeds of the Lord, the praiseworthy acts of the Lord, because of all that the Lord has done for us, and the great favor to the house of Israel that he has shown them according to his mercy, according to the abundance of his steadfast love. For he said, surely they are my people, children who will not act deceitfully, and he became their savior. In all their distress, it was no messenger or angel, but his presence that saved them. In his love and pity, it was he who redeemed them. He lifted them up and carried them all the days of old. And then the second scripture is Proverbs 23, 22 through 25. Listen to your father who begot you, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy truth and do not sell it. Buy wisdom, instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. The word of the Lord. Thank you. So this time of year, when people begin to reflect on the actions and experiences of the past year, I usually approach this as a very positive time. I enjoy it. I rebranded it for my children several years ago, Reflection Week, and we spend a lot of time talking about the past year. But many of you know that 2025 has not been an easy year for me personally, and as for many of you in this room. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that it can be difficult to stop at this time of year and take stock of the year that has just concluded. Or perhaps, like some people I know, you reject the idea of setting goals for the new year to improve yourself. I've never seen a goal I didn't want to meet, so I can't relate to this, but I do still think that setting time aside near the end of the year to reflect on the ways God has worked in your life over the past year is valuable. This is what Isaiah says in verse 7 of that passage. We should recount the good things that God has done for us. This can help us to have hope when life is hard. I have some regular questions that I like to ask myself and my family to help us remember and express gratitude for God's work in our lives. You can refer to your handout, that's the top section there, on those reflection questions. So a lot of times that looks like just conversations over that week between Christmas and New Year with my family where I ask them these things. I personally like to journal through all of these questions, or as many of them as I can get through. But I think that they are helpful to think about what has happened in the year before, and then consider what we might want to see happen in the year to come. So you can take a look at those questions, but they're just simply, what was the most challenging part of this year for you? How do you see God helped you grow this year? What are you most thankful for? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about God? What lessons did you learn? What were your greatest disappointments? How were you hurt? And how were you healed? Where did you see God helping you overcome? And where do you still need God to show up for you? If you choose to use these questions for some personal reflection, I hope this exercise will bless you. I would also love it if you told me if you do this. When I recorded that previous message, someone in our church did share with me a couple of weeks later that they had used those questions and they found them really beneficial, and that's just a huge blessing. While I think that slowing down to reflect on how God has moved in your life is beneficial and a great way to wrap up the year, most of my message today is going to go in a different direction to suggest a spiritual practice that I would encourage you to incorporate in the new year. So my question is, who is mentoring you? How often do you watch a video, listen to a podcast, or read an article online, and then when that media has finished playing, another is recommended and even immediately begins playing? When this happens, do you stop and consider why this new piece of media is being offered to you? How does the site or platform know what you like or are interested in? Do you stop to question the algorithm and the motives behind the programmers? When I ask those questions of myself, the answer is usually no. I don't stop to ask these questions, and I would guess that some, not all, I'm not presuming to know you, don't either. I'm specifically thinking of young people that I know and their kind of susceptibility to the suggestibility of the algorithm. Whether we stop to consider it or not, the media we consume is influencing us. In a time when many people are absorbing most of their information through digital media, I want to encourage us to be thoughtful about who we allow to influence us. Although you may be thinking that you are thoughtful about the media you consume, you also may regularly interact with people who are not. For instance, my students have shared with me that they have turned to artificial intelligence for mental health advice or to learn about religion. While the AI may offer them sound advice or factual information, I see two red flags with this practice. First, no one knows the exact people who are coding the AI they use or the exact kind of training that the AI is receiving. The coders could be considered the authors of the AI, and training would be the mentors or influences on the AI. Second, the artificial intelligence does not offer any sources to support the information it provides unless you explicitly ask for that information, and it can still be dodgy. I know from experience. Thus, I would encourage you that there are better, although not faster, ways to learn more about a topic that you are interested in and to receive your spiritual development. In the passage from Proverbs that I shared earlier, there is an exhortation to listen to the wisdom or advice of your elders. The verses specifically reference listening to your parents, but I think that we can expand this and use the word mentors in addition to parents. Verse 23 encourages us to seek after truth, wisdom, instruction, and understanding as more important than wealth and power. If we search after these things, our parents will rejoice and be glad because we are not relying upon our own experience and knowledge to make decisions about the future. I would like you to consider reading as a valuable way to have mentors who can share their wisdom in a way that can help us deal with both our personal circumstances and the current social and economic challenges that we face. So I want to talk to you a little bit this morning about why you should read books in 2026. For the past couple of decades, there have been concerning trends that the rise of digital media is contributing to the decline of literacy. With each successive survey on reading habits of American adults, the numbers decline. Right now, it appears only just over half of American adults surveyed claim to read a single book in the last 12 months. I can understand the appeal of quickly accessing and consuming information via the internet. I have been known to use the Google. However, I want to point out a few benefits of reading to you, offer my own experiences of reading, and then suggest a few steps you could take to read books in 2026. First, let's talk about the benefits of reading books. Although the internet has provided us with the ability to access seemingly endless information at our fingertips, there are some reasons I believe that books are a good alternative when you want to learn more deeply about a topic. Typically, before a book can be published, it is fact-checked if it is nonfiction, and edited regardless of genre, although we will not talk about those authors who need better editors. As I am sure you are all aware, information can pretty easily be published on the internet without checking for accuracy. Now, I know most of the adults in this room are of the generation that when you were in school, your teachers said, "Don't use Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a bad source because anybody can put anything on Wikipedia." Now I wish my students used Wikipedia because actually, Wikipedia is a good starting place. Oftentimes, people who put information on Wikipedia are actually scholars of whatever topic is being listed, and so they do provide good sources. And so now professors will tell students, Wikipedia is actually a great place to start, then go look at the sources that are being listed and see if you think that you might need some of those, read some of those sources. But now, even more so now, it is easy to put information up on the internet without any kind of process for making sure that that information is accurate and correct. Even trusted news outlets have been known to publish inaccurate information online because of the strong pull towards speed rather than accuracy on the internet. Books are definitely slower, but is that always a bad thing? I would argue that it is not. In fact, I believe that I learn more and retain the information more long-term when I read physical books rather than reading on my computer or phone. When I talk to people about reading, they will often share that they enjoyed reading as children, but then due to school or other obligations, they have lost the enjoyment of reading and have thus lost that habit. If you would like to develop the habit of reading or regain the habit of reading in 2026, I have some advice for you. You may be surprised to hear this, but habit development is one of my special interests. I've read books on habit formation such as The Power of Habit, Atomic Habits, and 4,000 Weeks. I've also watched countless videos on developing a habit of reading. Here are a few easy tips for developing a reading habit. They're also on your handout. 1, set your goal really low. I say 20 minutes a day. Lots of people say 20 minutes a day. You could start lower than that. You could start 5 or 10 minutes. That would be good. But 20 minutes a day will expose you to over 1 million words in a year. That's a lot of words. One of my fun things that happens when I teach is that my students frequently, I teach writing, my students will frequently say, I want to improve my vocabulary, so I'm going to download an app that will teach me a new vocabulary word every day. I say, just read a book. Just read a book. That will teach you new vocabulary because you'll get that vocabulary in context, which will help you to actually be able to use it. The second idea is to don't be afraid to quit or put a book down if it's not interesting to you or you are struggling to feel motivated to pick it up for your daily reading. If you don't want to open that book, then that means it's probably not a good book for you right then. It's probably not engaging you. Try reading a lot of different genres if you are not sure what would appeal to you. Sometimes you just haven't figured out what works for you yet. Number 4, pick a specific time to read that you know will be able to commit to reading regularly. For me, and I am not suggesting this to anyone who is not a morning person already, this involves waking up at a very early hour to read before taking the kids to school and going to work. Again, I am and have always been a morning person. So that is something I am excited to do. I would not encourage you to do that if it doesn't work, but it might be your lunch break that you also read while you have your lunch. Or it could be a few extra, getting ready and being ready for the day a few minutes early so you could also build in a little bit of reading time. There's plenty of places to do it if you look for those places in your day. And lastly, attach your reading habit to a habit you have already established. For instance, I will listen to audiobooks while going for a walk or a run. This definitely feeds my desire to be as productive as possible as well, because I'm doing 2 good things at once. On that note, if one of the reasons you find yourself without a reading habit currently is that you struggle with reading, I have some encouragement for you on that note. Many people find their attention span and ability improves as they practice and develop the habit of reading. However, if you've always struggled with reading and you think that you might have a reading-related learning disability, I strongly recommend you to seek out evaluation for that. There are therapies available to help people who have reading-related disabilities, and they are available for adults too, not just children. In addition, I'm firmly in the camp that listening to audiobooks is reading. A podcaster I like, she refers to reading books with her eyes or reading books with her ears. And I love that comment. So if reading books with your eyes is difficult for you, I recommend listening to books. Oh, I meant to have Nathan pull this up on the screen. It's okay. This is where I give you a free, quick, non-sponsored advertisement for using the library app, Libby. I am a huge fan of this app. It's an excellent app. And if you have a Harris County Library card, you have access to a huge catalog of ebooks and audiobooks. If you aren't in Harris County, you can still probably get, there's lots of other libraries that are attached to it, so your local county or city library probably has Libby. But there's also lots of libraries in larger metro areas that offer digital library cards, even if you don't live in the area. So you can get a Houston digital library card if you live in Texas. So you just go to their website and sign up for it. So once you've decided that you want to develop the habit of reading, how else can you retain the information that you read or get the most out of your fiction reading if you're wanting to read fiction? I take a few extra steps when I'm reading books that I hope will help me long term. When I teach my students about reading in my writing courses, I suggest that they take these steps to become active readers. Engage with your book. Have a conversation with it. If I'm reading my own book, I will typically annotate the book with my own notes and highlight quotes that are particularly meaningful. This means my husband will never read a book that I've done this to. And if I am reading a library book or a book that I have borrowed from someone else, I usually use book flags to mark quotes that I want to remember. I have a couple of Google Drive folders where I make a new doc for each book and type up the quotes that I think I may want to reference in the future. This is a kind of commonplace book for me. It is helpful for me to have a digital commonplace book rather than physically writing down all of those quotes, because I often reference books and articles I've read in my writing, both as a scholar and in my sermons. Another way to be an active reader is to find someone to talk to about your reading. Joining or forming a book club is one way to do this, but you could also just ask people what they've been reading and see if that leads to an interesting book-related discussion. Now that we've discussed why you should read and how you can develop a habit of reading, I want to talk to you a little bit about my experience as a reader, which is illustrative of the point that I think reading is a spiritual practice. So if you've known me for a little while or paid attention when I teach at church, you probably know that I'm a reader. I don't read a little or like reading. I learned how to read when I was a kid and decided to make it my whole personality. I read on average 100 books a year. At least that's since I've been tracking my reading, which is about the last decade or so. Some years are a little higher, some are a lot lower. I read a lot of different things, but pretty consistently since my teens, I've read books besides the Bible for spiritual development. I've found that there is a lot of wisdom that has been shared from the very early history of the church through today that has helped me to grow and develop my faith. Around 2019, 2020, I found myself reading a lot of books that opened my eyes to problems of racial injustice in the Christian church in the United States. These books were very helpful to me and challenged me as the authors presented me with experiences that I had not had and that I was not previously familiar with due to the sheltered environment I was raised in. In this way, these books acted as windows into another world for me. However, as time went on, I also found that I was pretty consistently angry and upset by the injustice that these books illuminated, and I think that I could have followed the path that many of my friends have in walking away from the church. While these books were good and beneficial and had a lot of meaty citations, they did not tell the whole story of what it means to believe in God. They do not represent a full picture of theology for me. So in 2023, I decided that I wanted to be influenced by older books that had been considered Christian classics for many years. I also wanted to read some books more slowly so that I could absorb their richness more deeply. I set a goal to read one book that I consider a Christian classic every month in 2023. I won't list all the books I read, but some of the books I found really meaningful were The Cost of Discipleship by Dietrich Bonhoeffer, The Quotidian Mysteries by Kathleen Norris, and The Seven-Story Mountain by Thomas Merton. I also read some classics, like regular classics that year, including Moby Dick, I do not recommend, and War and Peace, highly recommend. Although I continued to read more contemporary Christian books, I found that absorbing the thoughts and insights of older writers who are not my contemporaries provided some encouragement to me. For instance, if you find yourself concerned about the current interaction of the American church and politics, then I strongly recommend Bonhoeffer. I was so moved by his writing that I ended up going down a biography rabbit hole that summer, and reading a really powerful biography of Bonhoeffer as well. These books provided a depth of discussion on various Christian topics that I found myself returning to their ideas multiple times. I would now say that Thomas Merton is one of the great influences on the development of my faith over the past few years. Christian writers such as Bonhoeffer and Norris have mirrored back to me reflections of my inner life and helped me understand where my heart needs to change. So now that I've shared with you about 2 experiences I had with being mentored by books, I want to give a couple of quick suggestions for choosing who will mentor you in 2026. First, start by reflecting on the unexpected things you faced in 2025. Perhaps use the reflections questions I suggested earlier. Second, consider the challenges you anticipate may be ahead of you in 2026. I know we have lots of those. Third, ask yourself, where would you like to grow spiritually in the next season of life? I've been on a kick reading parenting books this year because I want to become a better parent. Fourth, you could plan an entire year of reading on a specific topic. This is sometimes called a personal curriculum. Or you could compile a list of books that interest you and proceed through that list based on whim, sometimes called mood reading, or the library's hold list. I'm a notorious mood reader in part because I have a wide range of interest. And I would also say that, just mention that on the back side of your handout is a list of suggested books. Now, some of the books are not the most famous books by that author. They're just ones that I have read by that author. So if you're like, why didn't she mention this more famous book by so-and-so? It's because I haven't read it yet. The last thing I would suggest is to get started. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Analysis paralysis can sometimes be a problem with beginning a new habit, and I hope you won't do that. So thank you for your indulgence this morning as I've shared on this topic that is so meaningful to me. I hope that you found something that I said encouraging for you as we leave 2025 behind and look forward to 2026. As we reflect on the ways God has kept us and been faithful to us in this year, we remember that as Christians, we don't just reflect on God's goodness once a year. Instead, we are invited to reflect and remember the miracle of salvation every week when we gather at the table to take communion. As we prepare to join in Holy Communion this morning at the Lord's table, I want to invite